Let's take a moment and recognize our choir. We're so glad to have them back. Good morning. Welcome to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Leslie Takahashi, and my pronouns are she and hers. We want to welcome you to this very special day, this Easter Sunday. We are so grateful to be here this year and to be gathered together and to have some folks visiting us. I appreciate my fellow bonnet people out there. Thank you so much. If you're feeling it and you didn't quite get yourself organized, we have some bonnet making material over on the patio that you can find after the service. You'll just be a latecomer to the bonnet movement, but we're glad that you are here. For those of you who are visiting us, and we know we have a lot of folks who are traveling through out of town, we're really grateful that you can come and be part of our congregation in the extended family of Unitarian Universalism. And if you're visiting and may be interested in learning more about our congregation, we hope you will fill out a visitor's card on campus at the table if you're here, or online if you're joining us online. And I know that some of my bonnet people are online today, so I expect to see a picture posted by the end of the day. So we are grateful to have all of you here. We have a lot going on in this congregation, and one thing that I will mention is that after this service, in about an hour and a little bit, we will be having some kind of hunt that involves something. Anyway, I don't know, it'll come up later in the service, I'm sure, so just be listening for that. But we are grateful to have with us this morning everyone of all ages for the first half of our service, and that is a deep joy that we have in the congregation today. Our winter night's guests are here. Please do not enter the kitchen or the Borton Hall. If you need to use the restroom, please just use the gallery, and that will be a great way to get in there today. This is the week we have our Vesper service and our ministers class. It's this Wednesday, and it is not too late to sign up for community circles or connect groups. I know it is a great way to get to know people and talk to folks, get back into the habit after our time of being a little bit more apart, and you can talk to Michael about that after the service. Please talk to Michael or to me if you're in need of a listening ear or financial assistance, because we know that some are struggling in this time, and asking is a gift you give the community. Welcome, happy Easter, a little bit late, happy Passover, and we are so grateful that we are here today gathered.
Good morning. I'm Ron Annan, a member of your Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are he and him. Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church is a welcoming religious community. We start our services by reading together our church mission together. We bring to life our Unitarian Universalist values as we seek truth and work for justice, nurture compassion and courage, reach out to each other and to our larger community of faith, bridge the divisions that wound the human family, transform ourselves and our world. Welcome to our service this morning. We're very happy to have you here or online. Just want to remind everybody that masking is optional outdoors, but do recognize that not everyone is comfortable in close range with an unmasked person, so let's continue to allow people to have that option. There's a little give me space sticker that you can use if you're trying to get that message across. If you missed our Guardians of the Spirit event last week, that event is recorded and you can see that online. Thanks everybody for making such a successful Commitment Sunday that we had. We are still in the middle of our pledge drive, and we've made it a little bit more than halfway there. And so we would encourage that if you haven't, first of all, for all of those who've pledged, thank you very much for your ongoing commitment. What you invest with your pledge on an annual basis is really an investment in this community, in the people, especially the staff, that help us to keep the programming going and to keep all of the different ways that we have outreach to our community members going. And so I really encourage you to think about doing your pledge if you haven't done so. Today, we have Connie Chiba in a really wonderful turquoise, there she's in the back, shawl, who is going to be manning the beautiful covered box that you can make your pledge, and that's right out next to the patio afterwards. In these ever-challenging times, we are here for each other. If you do need, please reach out to a minister. Welcome, everyone. It's great to be together.
And in case anyone was offended that I named 2 holidays, but not the vernal equinox, which is also in this season, that's because I intend to instruct you now to spring into greeting one another. As we are in this very important season of our pledge drive, we are hearing each week from one of our members about why I commit to MDUC, and we are grateful to have Shelley Kreiderman here today.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Shelley Kreiderman, pronouns she, her, and hers. My mom and I are church trippers, which is my own definition that includes a person who has tried many churches in an attempt to find the least harmful experience. Her needs may have stemmed from the early effort of my father's family's many attempts to proselytize beliefs to her, while mine may be a byproduct of being raised in a bi-conflicting religious family. At any rate, 7 years ago, my mom asked me to check out MDUC. And for some time, I dismissed the notion, but her description of a place that didn't push religion on others was encouraging. Even more encouraging, perhaps the initial decision grabber was, and I quote, "You have to at least come and hear the piano player." He's really good. So we started sitting on the left side of the sanctuary, over here, close to the musicians section piano player Brett Carson. And there we discovered Johanna's violin, as well as Mark's choir directing, and numerous other musical wonders. When I tell you this, it'll probably be no surprise to know that I am a musician of sorts, and this past year, an elementary school music teacher. However, during the time period I started attending, my emotional, physical, and mental health was in crisis. I had a chronic involuntary muscular condition that took years to diagnose. And I was unable, this dystonia condition ebbed and wound throughout my body and incapacitated me. Not being able to perform or be musically active was bad, except it wasn't my worst crisis. My worst crisis was the fear of failure, my self-doubt of being able to parent the two incredible human beings in my life, my two teens. Through MDUC, my husband and I joined the support group Parents of Teens. We laughed, commiserated, and explored our roles as parents. We did not have to be the best, and in actuality, average, not exceptional, parenting skills produce the most well-rounded adults. My mom and I volunteer for campus landscape cleanup. The Elder Journey group met near this time. We were invited to attend. My favorite and most memorable activities from MDUC were volunteering and being in community with our guests during the Winter Night Shelter program, chaperoning high school retreats, experiencing the rawness and challenge of beloved conversations, a race discussion and education group, and the joy I experienced after seeing my initially reluctant teens complete the Our Whole Lives curriculum, a program that teaches healthy relationship skills and body image. They both gave it a thumbs up rating, and I believe they are much more compassionate, knowledgeable human beings for having attended. Professing commitment was a strong word in my bi-religious childhood that took an on and off over-exalted status. I will say I owe this community a lot, and I'm happy to give of myself in return. I've attended services with an IV attached to my arm filled with antibiotics, my brain in a fog, feet twisted and unsteady, and yet have been included in the most wonderful conversations after hours. None of these conversations scrutinize or push for any details of my illness. Many other times, the hardened borders of my smile, hiding the bodily pain I endured daily, was broken away by Beth Snordom's outstretched arms of embrace, who managed with this respectful gesture to convey support without requiring me to speak between my tears. This is truly a caring community. Over the course of 7 years, much like relapsing, receding MS, my body is calmed. The nightmare has subsided. Yet my illness is very much part of my story, my life, and even perhaps my future. I'm grateful to be able to perform and teach music this year. I'm also grateful to have found a community whose first principle states the affirmation of the inherent worth of dignity of each and every person. My MDUC hope for you is that you will also be beloved during the most vulnerable moments of your life and realize you are supported and accepted. Absorbing Reverend Leslie's sermons, I have grown into affirming my own worth during a most difficult time, and am now able to affirm and relate to my teen and young adult during their torrid times. You are here, despite it all, being amazing. This is enough. Thank you. I want to end with the warmth behind Reverend Leslie's greeting. Welcome. It is good to be here together in this community. Happy Easter.
Hi, I'm Allison Ray. My pronouns are she and her. And the chalice reading for today is called In the Mystery of Life About Us, There is Light by George Kimmich Beach. In the mystery of light about us, there is light. It gives us a place to be, to grow, to rejoice together. It opens the pathways to love. In this place of friendship, there is freedom. Let the light we kindle go before us, strong in hope, wide in goodwill, inviting the day to come.
We invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn. In the hymnal, it's number 38. If you have that, the words will also be on your screen. Morning has broken, light blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet melodies new fall, melodies from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden's soft play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, praise recreation of the new day.
Where are we?
I have no idea, and I don't care. I'm just glad to be off the shelf. Off the shelf. Hey, that's good.
Yeah, it is hard to be a puppet that only works one day a year.
Exactly. Get it?
May I have your attention, please?
Oh boy. Though he is not as bad as the buzzard that lives above us, he is also a bit full of himself.
I think the guy on the shelf above us is a turkey, not a buzzard. And luckily, he is gone out of town. He says it's safer to travel on a holiday where the main dish is less likely to be him.
Attention, attention! I would like to tell the stories of this day. You there, do you know the nature of this day? You there, little chicken.
That would be chick to you. The nature of this day? I know it's something outside of nature. You know, about Jesus and everything.
Yes, that story about how Jesus died and then was raised by God. Or you could say it is about the rise of the beliefs about love over acts of hate, about how true teachings endure over false ones.
Okay, that is a very short story.
The longer one has a lot of trigger warnings, though I could tell it.
Or not.
Ah, the Easter eggs. Do you know the story?
Our story? We have a story?
Well, to begin with, one of the symbols of the vernal equinox is the egg. It represents the cycle of the rebirth of nature and is often thought to represent the sun god.
I represent a god. I can see that.
And some of the old stories said that the universe was created when a divine serpent wrapped itself around and cracked the cosmic egg.
Hey, wait a minute. This story is not all it's cracked up to be.
Did you know eggs were offered to the dead as a way to call for rebirth and return?
A little morbid, but okay.
Also, eggs were an important food.
Moving right along. Next story.
Ostrae, the Saxon goddess, and Ostera, her Germanic counterpart. Ostrae, in addition to being associated with good things such as the dawn, rebirth, and spring, has an important feature in many of her stories. A very important feature. A stupendously important feature.
What is it?
Her best friends were rabbits.
Rabbits? What about cute, fluffy little chicks?
She was known to take the form of a rabbit, and it was said that the very special, magical eggs of this time were laid by rabbits.
Laid by rabbits. That's it. I'm leaving.
Are you kidding? You don't know much about eggs, do ya?
Or rabbits.
That's right. What a harebrained idea. Get it?
Perhaps we should take a little pause.
So this is a very important moment in our service when we are going to recognize one among us who has achieved a great milestone, and that is Isabel Johnson, who is celebrating her 100th birthday. I'm going to ask Isabel. I was asking my scouts if she was here. That she's in the back. So Isabel's in the back, so we are all going to turn around and wave at Isabel, and we are also going to have an opportunity to we're going to have two other opportunities, one I'll share in a moment, but we just want to take a moment and say so many people have been touched by Isabel's amazing spirit, her humor, her loving personality, and her ability to be so present to whoever she is with. And that continues to this day, and we are so grateful to be able to sing Happy Birthday to Isabel Johnson, 100 years old.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Isabel. Happy birthday to
And we will continue the celebration with cake following our service.
We're going to invite you once again to rise in body or spirit and sing together A Promise Through the Ages Rings. A promise through the ages rings that always, always something sings, not just in May in Finchville bound, but in December's coldest hour. A note of hope sustains us all. A life is made of many things, bright stars, bleak years, and broken wings. Can it be true that through all things there always, always something sings the universal song of life, entombed within our deep despair? Our pain seems more than we can bear, but day shall pass, and nature knows that deep beneath the winter snow a rose lies curled and hums its song. For something always sings, this is the message Easter brings. From deep despair and perished things, a green shoot always, always springs. And something always, always sings.
Are you back for more of my stories?
The thing is, who needs a special story when everything is so special anyway?
You mean like the fact that a flower can come from a bud?
Or a huge tree from a tiny seed?
Yes, and leaves can spring from a branch that looked as if it had no life during the winter, that little grasses can pop up from wherever they have been, and animals can come out who have not been out. Hey, where is the little chick?
I think she was offended.
Maybe she chickened out. Chickened out.
Have you ever noticed that whenever someone asks if you get it, you wish you had not? As I was saying, many legends and tales evolved from the natural rhythms of the year, and the ancient peoples who would welcome the coming of spring as a miracle, and they got the idea of colored eggs from the eggs of the birds, which are blue and green and yellow.
If they ate those, I'd rather not hear.
Well,
Wait, look. There's this odd animal wandering around. Does anyone know what it is?
that is right, the Easter Bunny.
Yay. I have been watching him, and so far, he has not laid a single egg.
Too bad. We could use some new friends around here.
Ah, that is the stuff of legend, and yet it gets our imagination going after the cold, hard winter. I say, though, you don't want to detain him. He has important things to do. I understand there is to be a hunt later? Everyone wave bye to the magnificent bunny. And who says we don't see splendor every day? That is what this season reminds us of, the beauty of all life and the superior beauty of some kinds of life.
Did you say there's going to be a hunt? What kind of hunt?
Let's just say it involves the seeking of oblong-shaped, miraculous signs of life.
Uh-oh. I think he means us. Get it?
Yes, I get it, and I'm getting out of here.
We would like to invite everyone to join us in singing the children and youth out to their activities.
Winter winds have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Winter winds have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Sharp the smell of love, and his eyes that turrets of the tulip. Winter winds have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Crickets is on night, soft upon our brows, the sunlight your caresses. Winter rains have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Sabota, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm not going to be texting or making a call. I'm just keeping myself on track with time. So, good to see you all this morning. How is hope informed by hard things in life? That's the topic that Reverend Leslie texted me about earlier in the week. Ironically, I was working on a story at Papillon about Ramadan. And at first I was thinking, I don't really know if I can do at this time. I thought about this for just a quick second because life feels really hard right now. And I was working on a big story, and then I looked up, and across from me was this 86-year-old woman who I had seen in that same coffee shop the very week before, and she suffered a medical emergency. In the midst of having coffee with people from her church, she froze and became unresponsive. And then people jumped in one by one. Somebody got her water, somebody called the ambulance. I went to the restaurant next door to find a medical professional to jump in and help. And then I realized, I texted back Reverend Leslie right away, and I said, I can do it. Because that moment, and even in that particular day when I was working on that story, it was another moment where things in life felt hard. But there's nothing like being met with a challenge like this that's life-threatening that really puts life into perspective. And so when I think about how is hope informed by hard things, I want to argue that hope isn't just informed by difficult things and even scary things. It depends on them. Now, it's so cool that we're acknowledging a 100-year-old member of the church today. Happy birthday, Isabel. I'm going to tell you about another 100-year-old that I hung out with yesterday. So, you know Betty Reed Soskin. She went here. She actually is the person who planted a seed of curiosity about Unitarian Universalism for me. And she's always been one of my favorite interviewees. So yesterday, she was being celebrated at the Rosie the Riveter National Park. Her last day of service at the age of 100 was March 31st of this year. Remember that day because it is a part of history. And I went to her retirement celebration yesterday and was really contemplating about this theme. And I knew she was the person that I would be talking to you about today, so I'm going to tell you about another cool 100-year-old. And this will be maybe just a refresher for some of you, and some of you might learn some new things. So Betty's life is completely inspired and informed by hope. When she was 50, she lost, in the span of a couple of months, she lost her first husband, her second husband, and also her dad. Now, this was a woman who had been a stay-at-home mom and lived in relationship to and kind of defined herself by the men in her life for all of these years. So she went through this big grieving process, and then it was her hope that she could find her own self and her purpose that led her on this bigger journey and will keep her alive in the years to come. Now, when she got to the Rosie the Riveter Park, more than 15 years ago, at age 85, that's really when she hit the peak of her career. So if you haven't quite found your thing yet, there's time. But she found that the narratives of women of color weren't represented as they were telling the stories of Rosie's. And it was hard for her. At that time, she had a few options. She could either do nothing, which, you know, and she could also be rightfully angry about being left out. But that hard thing of being omitted or not included in the history, it lit a fire inside of her that ignited hope that she could do something about it. And because history is remembered by who is sitting at the table and telling it, she pulled up a chair and added her story. The story of a woman whose great-grandmother was a slave, the story of a woman who lived through segregation, and the story of a woman who finds hope in her intergenerational grandchildren and peace in knowing that her legacy will live on. When I was talking to all sorts of people, like there was probably 500 people in this space yesterday, and people were showering her with love, and her daughter Diara was trying to push her out and couldn't even push her wheelchair through because everybody was crowding around her. They all wanted a little bit of a piece of Betty, right? And then I talked to Betty's son, Bob. I had no agenda for what he would say, but I always like to ask people, what's the most important thing that you learned from, you know, whatever life experience it is, or in this case, I asked from Betty, and he said, I don't really know how to answer that, but I do know that many years ago, my mom brought me to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church, and she taught me that it's our job to do what we can to make the world a better place. And so that's what I'm caring for. That's what he told me. And that really struck me. Now, along with knowing that difficult things are a precursor to hope, and that hope depends on difficult things, I also believe in the magic of life and being present in the moment and staying open to serendipity and the surprises of the universe. This is probably why I subscribe to Unitarian Universalism. But as I was working on a radio story related to Betty that was inspired by my experience, I took a quick break yesterday at 8:57 p.m. And the people hate you at Trader, like they should. They could rightfully hate people like me at Trader Joe's when you arrive at that time. And I was about to go into one line, and another cashier waved me over into hers, and she was making polite conversation, like, what did you do today? And I didn't want to weigh her down with my story, so I was like, oh, I was almost going to take the day off of radio for Easter, but instead I covered this story, and, you know, that's it. And I was trying to, you know, I didn't want her to have to listen, and she's like, well, oh no, whose story? And I told her Betty reads Soskin, and she said, oh, that's really cool, because Betty went to my mom's church, this one. And so then I was reminded that really I really don't believe that there's just such a thing as a coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. And I have to think that we're all in this place because we have hope. I don't think it can be a coincidence that two people, one in a warehouse in Richmond and one in Trader Joe's in Lafayette, told me that they were connected to here and connected to people who found hope and purpose here. And as I said in the beginning, hope isn't just informed by difficult things. It depends on them. I really want to iterate that. It depends on difficult things, and it depends on scary things. I would argue that hope, along with presence, the magic of life, action, and each other, is what keeps the world going round. And on that note, together, let us worship.
As we prepare for our time of meditation, I invite you to join in singing our meditation music, All Shall Be Well. It is not in the hymnal, but the words will be on your screen. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. One last time. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well.
We have come together in this sacred space, uplifting this Easter celebration, while simultaneously honoring the Muslim observance of Ramadan and the Jewish observance of Passover. In each of these truths, we find hope permeating throughout. The month of Ramadan is akin to a spiritual awakening. It's a powerful and clear reminder that we can be transformed in mind, body, and spirit. And through this, we find hope for a deeper connection to ourselves, our community, and the greater world. Like Ramadan, the Jewish observance of Passover offers a narrative of hope, a story of unbearable horrors, backbreaking labors, and unrelenting faith, culminating in the celebration of the exodus of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. And Easter. I sometimes wonder if the disciples felt hopeless as they navigated the difficulties prescribed in the Bible. One minute they're enjoying dinner with Jesus, and the next he was being laid to rest in a tomb. The empty tomb symbolizes hope for eternity, a hope for something greater than we know and something bigger than ourselves. Much like these stories, we too can find hope even in spaces that feel hopeless. This morning I invite us all into the sacred practice of prayer. Spirit of love and life, God, by any name or no name at all, remind us that hope is an unbreakable spiritual line. When we are confronted by the challenges of this world, give us the courage to find and hold on to hope even in those spaces that feel hopeless. Let us find the good in our experiences, and may our hearts overflow with gratitude every day. Bless us abundantly with rest for the heart, patience in suffering, and wisdom in recognizing the gifts we receive through it all. May we be filled with the indescribable love that flows from joy and hope. Give us true faith and make that faith grow in us day by day. This morning, we ask for hope, love, and kindness. May they be ever present within and around us. May we share them with all our relatives, both near and far. Amen. Ashe. May it be so.
Thank you. That was quite lovely. Good morning. My name is Mark David Watanabe. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. The Christian observance of Easter and the pagan celebration of Ostara have long been associated with the promise of renewed life. In that spirit, let us consider the words of esteemed theologian, the Reverend Howard Thurman, once the first Black Dean of Marsh Chapel at Boston University and the co-founder of the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples in San Francisco. He said, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Amen, Reverend Thurman. Remember that the power of this community rests in its capacity to connect with each other and to something beyond ourselves, to both inspire and aspire to breathe together in creating a better way of being in the world that affirms the wholeness of all. The generation of this power is fueled by your gifts. We ask for your generosity now, whether in a basket on campus, in a field online through the Give Now button on our website, or a yet-to-be submitted pledge card for supporting our multiple ministries for the next church year. This is your opportunity to declare your commitment to becoming alive as together we answer the call to provide what the world needs. Your offerings will now be gratefully received. Please join with me in reciting our dedication of the offering. To the work of this community in transforming ourselves and our world, we dedicate ourselves and our offerings.
I have a confession to make, and that is that I love watching from a distance the rituals of the small Baptist church down the street from me around Easter. I absolutely love just watching the flow of people coming and going, which happened even during the last 2 years because they conduct their Good Friday and their sunrise service outside. This morning, though, it occurred to me that perhaps I should change my ritual, because my ritual is to walk my dog so as to time it as to walk by the singing for the sunrise service. And it started to occur to me that that's a little weird. Like they're all over there thinking, there's that stalker that comes every year with that dog to watch the sunrise, but never comes to the service. And if I'd been a little more organized, I might have just gone to the sunrise service this morning, just to be there and be with people. But I had an unfortunate experience that involved the head falling off the bunny cake I was making for winter nights. And so, in fact, I didn't even get to walk by at the right time. By the time I walked by, the service was over, the people were dispersing, and yet I was glad to see that some had come. Because throughout this last week, what I heard over and over and over again was, this is a year that I don't want to celebrate Easter. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Though this phrase is a translation from Dante, my cultural context would be more the melodramatic Mel Brooks kind of way. It's an overstatement and an absurdity in that context. And yet that seemed to be the message of people that I was speaking to throughout this week. They weren't quite sure they had it in them to try to embrace hope, that slippery and tricky thing that has given us so much of the run for our money over these last years. And yet, how many of us really do need that message of sin and grace, as Union Theological School President Serene Jones put it, even in times when to embrace it might seem ridiculous? And I'll define what I mean and what she means by sin in a moment, so you can let your breath out now, in case you're worried about my influence from down the street. As I said, so many people told me they just weren't feeling Easter this year, and I understood, especially those among our younger generations who are watching and wondering about the course of their lives and what it will bring, and those who are venturing back out into the world and not quite sure that they're going to be able to stay in it for much longer. We have seen so much, we've been through so much, and we continue to face so much ahead of us. We know that others are enduring horrors that we cannot even imagine, nor do we wish to. Our thoughts this Easter morning are with the peoples of Ukraine, a culture renowned on this holiday for their beautiful Easter eggs, which capture designs inspired by that continuing miracle of nature, which our puppet friend spoke to us about earlier in this service. And our thoughts are also in this season of Ramadan with the people of Afghanistan, especially the generation of girls who have very little hope of the future they dreamed of just a year or two ago. With people who struggle to make their ends meet, stretched between gas prices and housing, and with those who are experiencing, the many who are experiencing this particular holiday this year without a loved one who was here the last time they experienced it. And there are many this year. So we are, as we gather here in the spirit of community, holding all of this and taking a moment to name it matters. For few of us in 2022 believe in that kind of easy redemption, We seek the hope that can live in the tension between and around the world in which we actually live. Here we are. Some of you perhaps more tentatively, some of you at home may just be still in your PJs. You might not have even gotten your coffee yet because you're just not sure if you're going to do this whole Easter thing. So we're here to encourage you, right, everybody here? We're here to encourage you. And we understand that while an easy story of when things get bad, we are saved by redemption kind of hope has lost some of its power, perhaps some of the other kind of hope might rise anew with the beauty and power of last night's full moon. Our motivations, expectations, and hopes are not always as clear to us as we would want them to be, Serene Jones says to us. At times, we are not even aware of their presence. What I know about myself is that when I do not want to have hope, when I'm worn down, when I'm tired with disappointment, I still somehow find that somewhere inside of me is kindling that little spark that soon becomes an ember, that soon becomes a flame, and there I am, out in the world again. So on this Easter morning, just a few days from the time of Passover, and from that Jewish faith which the leader Jesus longed to reform by widening its embrace and ridding it of its excesses in his time. Many here have participated in the last few days in a Seder dinner, which I hope we will return to that tradition next year, for it's one of the most prized rituals of our shared year here. The part of the ritual I find myself thinking about this year is the drops of wine and the naming of the different plagues that we have endured, the plagues of locusts and illnesses and of other afflictions, and frogs, which always kind of worries me because I like frogs, but that's okay. But every time I go through that part of the ritual, I always feel this great relief, the sense of cleansing, that we've named what we need to name so we can get on to the message about continuing and moving and the Exodus. Torah scholar Aviva Zornberg reminds us, one can imagine the pressure at that moment in this story. It is not an ecstatic moment. It is a moment that in Hebrew, the word chephanzon means panic haste. You should eat the sacrifice that the Israelites are supposed to eat on that night in haste, which is a strange instruction. She says, you should prepare to eat it in haste. The people are told that so that they will have a sense of pressure, that they will feel that pressure in themselves to get out of this time of despair as fast as possible so that you can move into whatever hope is before you. It is the time when things are happening very fast in the moment and people are almost not capable of registering what is really going on, as we often aren't in critical moments of experience. In this April 2022, we're glad to be eating with more people, visiting and celebrating, worshiping in this way. To look around and see these chairs so full is just a joy. To hear our choir together is truly a balm to the spirit. And yet, in this year, we still need this message of the vernal equinox, of Passover, the commitments of Ramadan, and a world-grounded Easter story more than we think. We know now that it's not a message of a foolish or giddy hope. It's a new and emerging hope that may not be quite as easy to grasp and perhaps still is out there as a beacon. Krista Tippett reminds us that myths are not exactly true, but that some say that myths are those things that are so true that we must hear them again and again. And in this sense, we embrace this story again today. Serene Jones points out that the story, which is now in question for some of us, is the one that says that when bad things happen, they will be undone by a later, larger grace. That when we miss the mark, which is, of course, what the word sin means in its original archery context, when we miss the mark, when there is sin, there, even if we do not buy into that particular ethos, there is something larger that will come, that will allow us to transcend it and to move beyond it. So I'm going to invite you to take a moment to look around. Just to look around at the people who are here, those outside at the patio. It's beautiful to see all of you out there as well. And if you're at home, I invite you to picture to yourself the people who are most precious to you in this community and other communities, including yourself. For the great gift may not be the perfect world into which we are given everything that we need. The great gift may be this flawed world into which we are still asked to pour out all the passions of our hearts, all the commitments of our faith, and all the morsels of hope that we can gather up to share just as a communion with those among us. Jones says, the suffering itself is not the source of our redemption. We know that. The persistence of love in the midst of suffering is the redemption. The persistence of love. Jones, who writes about the struggles of those who have experienced a particular form of loss, speaks from her tradition when she says, they imagine God's solidarity with them as they lose the future they had hoped for and carry the weight of this loss inside them into a new future they did not imagine. In 2022, many have lost their imagined future and yet are still reaching out for that source of energy to enter into the one that they do have. That is how we allow life to return again and again in the spring each season, and even in the face of great difficulty and loss. In this time in which Serene Jones, the president of Union Theological Seminary, asks, will we open the door or close it? Ushering in a little of that new kind of hope is probably in order. And we see it all around us if we look. People greeting one another, coming to be together if they can so they can bring connection to others, giving rides and listening ears to those who can't venture out yet, people working to protect the rights of others, people working to help people who are here now on these shores unexpectedly build new lives, people bringing flowers and coming together to comfort those who have experienced loss and to celebrate great achievements like 100 years. Just the taking of another breath, that is also to be celebrated. For as Jones writes, breathing viscerally extends you towards your surroundings, taking in the mundane dimensions of all you encounter, the ebb and flow of the everyday, the not so dramatic unfolding of life in its normal cadence. With this comes remastering the lost art of standing calmly in the present, accepting your life as the gift and the promise. Even in the face of persistent loss, she says, hope is not impossible. What is it that we can do besides recommitting to act as we can? Jones invites us into wonder, saying wondering is the simple capacity to behold the world around you and within you and be awed by its mystery, to be made curious by its difference, and to marvel at its compelling forms. So let's not abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Let's instead embrace and wonder at its new forms, and let us actually be part of creating those as well. Let us see it in the unfurling leaf, in the earthworm who still knows how to venture forward when it rains, even in a time of drought, in the joys of friendship, in the joys of connection, in the miracle of another day of blessed life.
So we're going to invite you to rise and body your spirit once again and sing together our closing song, the Jazz Hallelujah. You notice the timing is a little bit odd in this. This is a partner song. It has 3 parts. Let's sing each part twice, and then choose a part, any part, or make up your own, but just make sure it's not the same as your neighbor's. Here we go, first part. Hallelujah.
As we extinguish this chalice, may we be reminded that it has long been a symbol of religious liberty and political resistance in the face of oppression. It is a symbol of hope for those who have historically confronted inequity, injustice, oppression, violence, and it remains a symbol of hope for us today. May we all take a spark of hope from this chalice and carry it with us out in the world for all to see and know.